Merry New Year!
Happy New Year. In this country, we say Happy New Year.
Ha 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 ha! Thank you for correcting my English, which stinks. I am Nanja Ibuko, exchange student from Cameroon. Ha 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 ha!
Hello, and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 71. It's January 8th, 2014. I'm your host, Stephen Seagraves, and today I'm joined by Seth Miller. Hey, Seth.
Howdy. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Is it beef jerky time?
Absolutely. Maybe some Swedish meatballs?
Lederhosen. Always a fun intro. Today we're going to kind of do like a welcome to 2015 type show. I mean, it's a new year. And did I say January 8th, 2014 on the intro? I think I did.
I hope so. If not, you said it again. Is this the 8th when this comes out?
This is the 8th, but I think
Sweet.
I think I said 2014.
Oh.
I'm not going to go back and we're not going to go back and change that, so it's okay.
Well, it's 2015 though now.
That's what I'm saying. I screwed it up.
Oops.
Beep. We're going to talk a little bit about our outlook for this year and kind of what we're excited about, and we'll also be covering some controversial airline passenger interactions and a data breach. So let's just get right off on it. I think Foz and Rolo are traveling in transit this week. So
Yeah, Rolo's still on his New Year's adventures.
which he's going to have to give us the full lowdown on next show.
Among other things, being on the very first Etihad A380 flight up in the apartments is going to be a great story. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
But
So let's just jump right in, Seth. What are you excited about for 2015? What does your travel year look like coming, as we start a new year?
I've got probably the first 4 months mostly planned out now. I'm sure a few other trips will kick in, but 2 trips to the Middle East, a trip to Asia, Hong Kong and Tokyo and Osaka. I'm actually really looking forward to doing Japan outside of just Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Save for one day I spent in Hiroshima on a day trip. I've never really done that. So really looking forward to that sort of part of the experience, getting down out into sort of some of the nature down there and whatnot. I'm going to be on the A350. Actually, by the time this airs, I'll have been hopefully on, if not just in front of, Qatar Airways' new A350.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm in Doha this week, so that'll be a lot of fun. Mistake fare to Abu Dhabi. Sure, why not? Thanks to actually the recommendation of a friend, I'm stopping off in the Isle of Man on the way for like 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, nice.
I have no idea why, but I booked a 12-hour layover in Manchester, in part to get miles for the whole trip because of the way Americans' rules for crediting Etihad flights works. And I was like, well, shit, I've got the 12-hour connection, not the 2-hour connection. Now what do I do?
So are you doing a little tomfoolery to get around the rules?
The ruling is Etihad flights nonstop between Abu Dhabi and the United States don't earn.
Gotcha.
But an Etihad code share operated by American from New York to Manchester does.
Interesting.
And then from there I can pick up Etihad operated from Europe to Abu Dhabi does earn as well. So going outbound on the trip, I can definitely credit those to American. The return I'm on the nonstop, so I got to figure out if I even care about the miles.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I think a big part of this year is sort of deciding if I still care about the miles.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that before the show. Like, what's our strategy this year? Do you have a strategy?
No, I really don't. And I'm looking at a trip. I'm going to Istanbul for a conference and then Hamburg, Germany for a second conference a couple months apart. And right now, the ticket I'm looking at to get me between the two, come back to New York and then go back, is a Europe originating open jaw. So Istanbul to New York to Hamburg. And it turns out maybe Hanover because that's like hundreds of dollars cheaper and it's only an hour and a half away by train. But I'm looking at booking a flight that may not earn me as many miles, or definitely not miles in a program I typically would have focused on.
Yeah.
And, it's a 10,000 mile round trip journey. Part of the problem is I think I've become a little jaded. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's only 10,000 miles. If I need that, I'll go to Asia again. Like, I kind of don't care because I can always find more miles if I need them, I feel like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also deciding in a lot of ways I care less about them. And it's hard because I still use them aggressively to make my travel cheaper. I use them a lot. I'm using points to get to Istanbul to start the trip. I'm using points to get home from Hamburg after that trip the second time. But, and the flexibility and whatnot is great, but it's hard for me to get really, really excited about trying to generate a whole lot of miles being a cheap bastard.
So are you going to do some bouncing of miles around? So, you're a big fan of Avios. I think everybody on the show's a big fan of Avios. Are you going to focus on that? I mean, what's your end game here? Because like you said, you do need the miles sometimes to position for some of these things, or you want to use them for family or friends as well.
And Avios are great. They're way cheaper to acquire through credit cards than through flying.
Yeah.
I've only once acquired Avios directly through flying, and that was a mistake. I should have credited them somewhere else because I wasn't paying attention to the fare classes, and actually did a worse job on that than I should have.
Yep.
Short of doing, tier point runs out on the Las Vegas to San Juan premium fares or things like that, the Avios program for earning, for me, isn't really a great one based on air travel. I mean, right now, there's that 40% bonus on Amex transfers into Avios. That's worth a lot more than me getting on a plane.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are you earning your Avios? Are you just doing it through the Amex?
Right now, if I need yes is the short answer. If I need Avios, I transfer over from Amex. Believe it or not, I still have some of my BMI points left over. So I was careful of my statement earlier. I've only earned directly into Avios through flying once. I have earned Avios by flying via BMI transfer a long time ago. A whole lot. I had a bunch left over.
I miss BMI.
What, 625% credit?
Yes.
On mistake A-ups from United?
Yes.
Those were the good old days.
The good old days that we'll never see again.
One of the very early mileage runs Foz and I did together, actually.
Maybe we
Spokane,
have to,
Washington.
Yeah, we have to reminisce about that one, because I've done that one as well. I did, what was that?
That was Chicago or Minneapolis to Spokane.
Minneapolis to Spokane, yep. Via, Chicago, San Francisco, Denver.
Foz and I got New Orleans into it.
Oh, nice.
We did, it was Minneapolis, Chicago, New Orleans, Denver, Spokane.
Wow.
We were trying, at one point we had San Francisco, but they killed the Spokane, San Francisco flight or retimed it or something like that. But anyway, we earned a lot of points. And I actually followed up and did, right after they launched that, U.S. Airways backed it up with a Chicago to Spokane mistake fare. And that's when they were all still in Star Alliance. And so I did 2 of those over the next 2 days after doing the first run with Foz. I did 3 in a 6-day window or something like that.
That's just brutal.
I played around the golf in between. It was pretty nice, actually.
Did you go to Coeur d'Alene?
Coeur d'Alene, yeah. I went over there and played around the golf. It was like the first week the course was open, and it was a little rainy. I took a conference call on the course because the other guys who I was supposed to play with didn't show. So it was me and the caddy, and he's like, well, I can either caddy for you or play with you. I'm like, grab your clubs. I'm not that good anyways. Like, let's have some fun. And halfway through the round, I'm like, yeah, I got a conference call now, so I'm just going to put my headphones on and talk every now and then. Don't pay much attention to that. And kept playing. I kept the call on mute. Every now and then I'd, stop and say something. But I played a round of golf during a conference call. It was great.
It's kind of awesome.
But anyways, what were we talking about? Avios.
Strategies.
I will still get points. I mean, my trip to Asia, my Tokyo trip, unfortunately comes after United changes their earning scheme. So the trip that would have net me, 20-odd thousand something miles, 25,000 miles or something like that, will net me a lot fewer. A lot fewer, like 8,000, 9,000 maybe.
Yeah.
That's sad, but is what it is. I mean, if it means I have to figure out how to turn credit cards and manufactured spending when I need more, push in that direction, I guess I'll learn. I also sort of ran the numbers. I spent a lot of money on plane tickets last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to spend the money, then, you're going to earn the miles at some point. It just may not be as many, but you're still going to earn a decent number.
Yeah, and for me, last year, I mean, it wasn't as many, and I was a little more diversified in the earnings. I didn't hit 1K again, for example. I probably could have if I had thought about it and paid a little more attention, but and maybe I should have. But I didn't hit 1K, so my earnings are going to be a little lower this year anyways. And I earned a few more Sky Miles, and I earned a few more Advantage points, and I paid arguably too much money, but it was a priceless sort of experience to fly on the final DC-10 flight. And I burned more miles than I should have to fly on that final MD-11 flight. And I did a lot of these little things.
Yeah.
I spent money where I wanted and got the experiences I wanted, in addition to buying whatever random mistake fares were out there and hoping that the points I got out of them were as valuable as the experience of going on the trip.
Yep, I agree completely. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of thinking, well, do I focus on the mileage part of it because for work, I have to pay for work travel anyway. And do I focus on that part of it, or do I care more about, maybe getting 1K again, which I think I won't have a problem with. But do I focus on, if I'm going to go somewhere, if there's a cheap business class ticket on Delta, like we've seen
Why wouldn't
before,
you buy it?
Why wouldn't I buy it? Yeah, like, why do I care that, it's only, 10,000 miles or whatever their multiplier is for a non-elite person, I guess, 5. So, it's 5,000 Sky Miles. Yeah, but it's a cheap ticket to Europe and I can take a vacation with my wife and it's affordable. To me, that's more valuable because I can actually go somewhere I want to go for a decent price in a premium cabin. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's, in a lot of ways, the big difference there is premium cabin versus not. Mm-hmm. I still do a lot of that crazy shit in coach.
Yeah.
So, maybe I was going to say, in some ways, I feel like this approach we're taking is a little more mature. Doing it in coach might not be, but, I want to travel still.
Yep.
And it's getting harder. I started doing it ridiculously like this 10 years ago. I started writing my blog 8 years ago. So it's a little crazy to actually think about those numbers. But I'm older than I was. It's a little harder to hop off a 5-hour red-eye flight or 6-hour red-eye flight to Europe and be coherent and party all night that night. But I'm still doing it as best I can.
Well, you wouldn't go do the Spokane runs again today, would you?
I probably would. I would probably try not to back them like that. Sleeping at O'Hare that night, I only had like a 5-hour layover.
Oh.
I figured by the time I clear security, get a hotel room, whatever, and back, it would have been stupid. The look on the woman's face, I walked to the front, to the ticket counter or the gate at 5:30 in the morning, disheveled as hell before I'd even gone to the bathroom to wash my face and, put on clean underwear and just asked the woman, hey, can I get my boarding pass? Just wanted to make sure I had it and was checked in and whatever. And one of the gate agents is like, how did you get in here if you don't have a boarding pass? At which point the supervisor behind her looks at him and says, look at him. He clearly slept here last night. With that sort of shock on her face. And I was like, oh, shoot, that's not a good sign. But I would try not to do that so much.
Yeah. But
would I take a random run here and there? I mean, especially the Spokane runs were in first class. So,
I think it's funny. I'm trying to remember. There was a trip, maybe, I want to say it's like 3 or 4 years ago, and we did it with a mutual friend, a couple of mutual friends of ours. And I can't remember where it was, but it was a small airport. And we got there around like 7:30 at night, and we were trying to do like all same day type stuff. Well, the only way to do that without paying for a hotel room was to do I think it was like a 1 a.m. departure. And I can't remember where this was, but we hung out in this airport for like 6-7 hours.
It's probably Sacramento or Ontario, California.
It was one of those.
I did one of those in Ontario, but we got out for the day. I went to Palm Springs.
It was brutal. It was brutal. We walked the length of the airport, and did that a few times, and everything was closed, and it was rough.
Yeah, there's some challenging ones out there. I'm trying to. Santa Barbara, I think, is one where you can walk from the airport to the beach.
Oh, that's nice.
If I'm remembering it correctly. I did one of those runs with a buddy once. And, we got out there too early in the morning. Or we left too early in the morning from the East Coast, did the Transcon to San Francisco, got down to Santa Barbara, walked out to the beach, sat down at a restaurant that was on the waterfront, watched people go by, had a West Coast brunch as well, because it was, like 12:30 or 1 by the time we got there. Walked back to the airport, SDC'd our flight down to LA. Walked over to In-N-Out, got our In-N-Out burgers, and took the red-eye home. And I can still do that every now and then. I just won't be doing it all the time. And especially for domestic hops, I'll be doing a lot fewer same-day turns.
Yeah, and something fun like that. Like I've thought about doing some of the E120 flights out of LA and San Francisco that are going to be going away. No, I mean there's some that are still running. I mean Carlsbad's still there for I think another month.
So you better hurry.
Eureka and some of those places that I don't know that anyone will ever fly ever again. Well, maybe they will because there's essential air service, but just random routes like that. I wanted to do that here in Portland to Bend and some of these, and I'll have to fly Alaska to do it. I just won't be able to do it on United, which maybe that's better. I don't know. So.
Honestly, I looked at my numbers this year when I was putting together my sort of end of the year report post that I always do. I've flown a ton of airlines this year, and I'm really happy for it.
Yeah, got to experience some new stuff, some new carriers.
And honestly, if you want to be able to say this is what it's like and, this one's better than that one, you have to actually experience it. You can't base it on other people's points of view.
Yeah.
And maybe what I think is better or worse isn't what you think is better or worse. But I can at least say I was on these 18 different carriers or whatever it was. It was some ridiculous number.
Mm-hmm.
I know the difference between the Aeromexico 787 versus ANAs versus Uniteds now.
Yeah.
And I'll know BAs in January.
And we're aviation geeks, so it's kind of what we do. We want to.
Yeah.
We like this stuff. So I mean, I think though our general point is travel to get somewhere, to do something. And if you love flying like we do, well then
and I mean,
mix it up.
Clearly, I have taken a flight just because I wanted to be on an airplane that day. I mean, I'm not going to say I won't just go flying randomly one day. I do that from time to time. I like being, strangely enough, in a pressurized tube at 35,000 feet. But I also like actually getting out of the airport and out of the hotel and seeing things and experiencing stuff. So. When we went to Seoul, it was partly about flying to get there and hit the status for, it got me my platinum status and this and that and whatever. But it was also partly because I wanted to go hang out and, get some food in Seoul and, wander around. And we did the fish market way better this time than I did last time when I was there on my own.
Yeah, we had a fantastic time.
It took me stalking that one guy up the stairs and figuring out what the hell was going on, but we finally figured out what was going on.
I loved the conversation we had before we decided that we were going to do that. We're like, well, Seth, why don't you go look what he's doing? And you went up those stairs before we even saw this guy. You went up those stairs like looking for the restaurants. And then you come back down, you're like, there's thousands of restaurants up there.
Well, the first time I went up, I said, there's nothing. I can't figure it out. And then the second time I went up and actually followed one of the guys, like, oh, they're all behind, like, they're not on the main hallway. They're like, oh, there's a whole separate building inside upstairs. And I'm sure we could have just, followed, blind faith and trusted that the vendors all knew what they were doing. But it was sort of nice to actually see what was going on with my own two eyes and then say, oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree. I will still fly for the sake of flying, but the reality is I'm changing it up a little bit, and I'm spending more time visiting places than just flying.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to do that. I've got, even if it's just, an overnight in Abu Dhabi, I plan on seeing Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend in Dubai, so maybe I'll do a few hours at the mosque in Abu Dhabi because that's apparently really all that's there. Maybe an hour in Ferrari World if I'm feeling particularly ridiculous. And then I'll take the bus up to Dubai and have dinner with my friend or something like that. I can do it. I can do both.
Yeah.
But it's things like that. I can actually sort of try to get a few more experiences, but I'm not showing up in Abu Dhabi and turning right around.
Yeah. And I wonder, thinking about our past year, I actually haven't written a summary post which is rare for me. I always write one up, but I didn't write up a summary this year.
You still have time.
I still have time. But we did the island hopper, and that was a huge highlight. And it was just flying to fly, but at the same time, we actually had a goal. We were trying to get to Hong Kong. We never made it, but we were trying.
Yeah.
And we were going to meet up with a couple of friends that we have there and have dinner and hang out and see the city for a day and a half. But it was built into this island hopper, adventure. And I loved that. That was great. I mean, it was a terrible experience, but it was fun.
You say, oh my, how his tune has changed.
It was, when it was going on, I was just like, I want this to be over. And then
if you go back and listen to that episode again, Stephen, you were pretty upset.
I was just like, of all the things that could happen, and all it took was Foz and I walking maybe 2 minutes slower at LAX, and we would have missed the entire thing.
Forgot about that. That's right. Oh. No, it really, you're right. That was flying just to fly, but it was flying to have the hopper experience because it's different.
Yeah, and we had a goal at the end. We were going to go to Hong Kong. There was a goal to it, and it turned into a really, I look back at it now, I'm like, that was fun. It wouldn't have been as fun without friends there.
Sure.
But it was fun with friends, and it was an experience that, I'll always remember, and I tell people about it all the time. And they're just like, what? Where? Huh?
Yeah. And to be fair, there are certain aircraft and places and, routes and types of planes and stuff that can be an experience worth having just for the sake of having.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking a shower on an airplane, kind of cool. I'm glad I got to do that once. Do I need to do it again? Maybe not. But it's really cool that I got to do that once. That's sort of one of those things. It's not very common and it's hard to do. And so you have to go out of your way to find that experience.
Yeah.
And so there are ways to have those types of experiences on planes, but more often than not, the plane is a means to get somewhere, not the end itself.
Yeah, and so I think for me, I didn't get to go to Hong Kong on that trip. That would have been my first trip to Hong Kong, and I was excited because friends were there to do it with me. I'm going to go back, I think, in February, maybe late June.
I didn't realize you hadn't gone before. All right, let me see if I can rework my schedule.
No. You don't have to.
Don't get me wrong, I want to go. I just got to make it work.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. I'd never been, so I figured, 2-3 days in Hong Kong would be fun. I think 2 max for the first trip, and then I'll figure out if I want to go back or whatever. But I've heard it's, plane spotting at the Hong Kong airport is awesome. Random carriers, tons of planes, I'm all about that. And I've heard the city is just freaking awesome, so I really want to do it.
Yeah.
And then I go into Poland. I've been to Krakow before. I'm going there again. And then Warsaw. I've never been to Warsaw. I've been in the airport. It's very orange. But this time I'll get to see the city, and I'm excited about that too. So that's happening early in the year, and that's all I really have planned.
I'm depending on you and your promise of like the vodka flows like water on the streets.
Every corner you take in Krakow is a liquor store.
Okay.
I'm serious. And it's like state funded or something. It's like it's not like everything is like a state owned place. Like all the liquor stores are like owned by the state of whatever Krakow's in. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
All right. And if any of our listeners, just for what it's worth, the whole crew will be actually in Krakow. We may record a special episode from there in a couple weeks. So if any of our listeners have recommendations or suggestions of what we should see or do while we're there, other than watch Seth drink as much vodka as humanly possible and die.
Hey, we're going to the aviation museum, so
that's true. I presume I'm allowed to take a flask with me.
I'm sure you will be. Maybe the guide will be drinking as well.
Sweet. It's cold. I'm doing it for, antifreeze purposes.
I should bring this up. I was wondering what you think. I'm about 100, maybe 200,000 miles away from lifetime gold on United. And is that worth it for me to even go for that? Like, is it worth it for me to say, oh, I'm going to devote a little more of my travel to United this year and maybe hit it? Or is it just like, whatever?
If you were 100,000 away and you're probably going to hit 1K anyways, I would say probably yes. I would move a little more of the flying onto United Metal. Is there even that much that's not going to be on United Metal?
I'm easily going to do 1K on United, probably more. I'm just saying.
But is there going to be any that's not on United Metal?
There's possibly going to be some East Coast travel that'll be on someone else.
But that wouldn't be part of your 1K qualifications.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to do 100,000 miles on United Metal anyways, then you're basically there, right?
Yeah. Well,
how close are you? Is it 200 or is it 100?
I'm 200,000 away.
Then, no, I wouldn't try to get it this year.
Okay. Just fly who I'm going to fly, and we'll worry about it the next year after that.
Yeah.
When they degrade what the benefits are.
Or they won't. As we've established through the courts, they can do whatever they want. So, don't get your hopes up for anything in particular. I don't think they're going to change the lifetime stuff too much.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And they're not going to change the elite earning anytime soon in terms of that stuff. So, it is still somewhat spend-based. Maybe at some point they switch to completely dollar-based, but...
Do you think they will? Do you think the airlines are going to look at it and say, now we're just going to make it pure JetBlue, Southwest style, points earned based on spend? Do you think that's coming? Hard to say type thing. It's
hard to say. I don't think it'll happen in this year. It may do, every couple of years sort of tweak things a little more. The big challenge still for the legacy carriers is all the partner agreements.
Yeah. Gets complicated when you add in all the partners.
Trying to track the math on that stuff is a lot harder.
Yep.
And mostly because they don't always have the data, and that's why it's tied to ticket stock. If it's sold on United stock or it's sold on Delta stock, they know exactly how much you paid. Anything else is fuzzy math.
Yep.
So
good. Let's talk about some of these passenger interactions that are somewhat controversial, and both of them, oddly enough, have to do with United. The first one kind of made big waves, and it was the mother of a disabled child in a first class seat holding the child, and the flight attendant came around and said, the child needs to be in a seat, and the child's older. I think they're 6 or 7, but they have a disability where they can't sit up straight by themselves, and the mother said no, and a big fuss was made, and I actually don't know the outcome. Did they actually take the child off the plane? Did they leave the plane, or did they stay on the plane? Do you know that, Seth?
My understanding is they came to a resolution that they didn't have to leave the plane, but I'm not 100% certain. They flew in the back somehow or something. I actually, quite frankly, didn't care all that much to read to the end.
And so the mother made a big deal about all this, and it's gotten a lot of attention. But the more detail that comes out on it, it's the more shady it is, or the more hard to understand it is. I shouldn't say it's shady. It's just hard to understand what exactly happened, because there are policies in place for lap children and things like that. But what struck me as odd is that the daughter's seat was in coach, but the parents were seated in first, and they had the lap child in first. That was the first thing that struck me as strange. And they were traveling with a large party. So I don't really know what to think of this. And I think people are kind of blowing it out of proportion. I don't know.
Well, I think the mother blew it out of proportion trying to rally the world to hate United.
Yeah.
And, saying, oh, they've embarrassed us in the cabin because, they, called us out and made a big deal out of this whole thing. And then, adding on to it, as the more layers of details sort of get uncovered, it was, oh, well, we knew we had to buy a seat for the kid, but it was in the other cabin. And, oh, we always do it this way, even though she's too old, and no one else has ever cared. And sometimes I think there was a reference at one point to, well, we know there's a special car seat we can use that we should have used, but we didn't bring it on this trip. And a lot of little things like that. The part that annoys me the most is the rule, is basically the sort of, as I understand it, the basis for this rule is you don't want a large child to go flying.
Yeah.
It's for the safety of the child and the safety of everybody else on the plane.
Yep.
If there's an accident, a 20 or 30 pound projectile flying through the cabin is not good.
Yep.
Human or otherwise. And so everybody says think of the child. Okay. But also think of the other 150 people on the airplane. When do we get to this place in the world where everybody else has to say, for the sake of this one child, we're going to be a little less safe, especially considering that there were so many different alternatives that would allow everybody to be appropriately belted in.
Yep.
That's the part that I struggle with most. And people are like, oh, well, you have no humanity and this and that. I'm actually thinking of everybody, not just one person. I think that's kind of makes a little more sense, but... And
those things that you brought up on things that stand out to you as strange, they seem like seem like conscious avoidance of the actual issue, which is the parents sounded like they knew what the policies were.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds like. And they just said, whatever, and we'll just do it our way. And if they say something, we'll deal with it. And now they dealt with it by posting something and getting everybody riled up about this. I mean, I saw this on CBS News. It's crazy. I mean,
I'm curious. What was the take CBS News took?
It was at CBS. Yeah, it's Jake Tapper, whoever Jake Tapper's with. I saw him posting a bunch of stuff, and he posted something on his little blog. Is he CBS? I can't remember.
Whatever. I don't even know who that is. So,
yeah. I follow him because he's a pretty good reporter, and it was this is something like this is pathetic or something, and it's kind of. It's off-putting that people are so willing to get behind something without really knowing all the facts. And as the facts come out, you're kind of scratching your head. And so maybe you and I are just inhumane people, Seth, but I don't buy the full story. I don't know. I'm not sure United was completely at fault here. I think that they handled the situation poorly maybe on the plane.
I have no doubt that there was probably more emotion and crazy on the plane than needed to be there from both sides.
Yep, agreed. And that's usually where all this comes. People get off the plane and go, you know what? I'm going to write something really rude about this because I cannot believe it was handled this way, and I can't believe she said it this way, or whatever. And it turns into this huge thing. So the second story is even stranger, I think. The second one is a monk who was traveling to, I believe, West Africa, somewhere in West Africa, from, was it San Antonio?
I thought it was Santa Fe.
Santa Fe, yes. And he was over in West Africa, and they had called to make a change. One of his co-monks in Santa Fe had called to make a change. Is that the word?
What do you think?
I don't have no idea. One of his brothers.
Co-monk. Albuquerque was where the trip originated.
Albuquerque. And so he called to make a change for this guy and found out that the ticket had been canceled mid-trip, and something had triggered this cancellation via corporate security. And this was on United, and the monk was very upset that the trip had been canceled and they weren't going to reinstate it and essentially strand his brother in West Africa. It's hard for us to say, you and I, what actually happened here, because there are tons of things that can set off a corporate security alert on a trip, right? And invalidate a ticket.
And to be fair, Africa is has one of the highest incidences of fraud when it comes to credit card transactions and airline tickets. I know a guy who has worked for a couple airlines in the region, and their level of sort of fraud detection and canceling out tickets and dealing with things, they end up selling a lot of tickets still in cash because no one either has real credit cards or they don't trust the people.
Yeah.
So, and it was Malawi in Eastern Africa.
Africa, I was way off.
Even further away.
Off.
But yeah, basically someone went through and was like, wow, random ticket, random routing, this can't be right, and canceled out the ticket.
Yeah.
And apparently, also they use the monastery's credit card. I have to presume that the monastery doesn't buy a ton of flights, much less $3,000 tickets to Africa. So it would probably look a little abnormal on that perspective. If I bought it, I would hope that they would just say, oh shit, Seth's doing something stupid again.
You would hope your credit card would catch it.
No, I would expect my credit card goes through. Unfortunately, more often than not, they start blocking my card when I buy tickets in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Can't figure out how to convince them that, no, really, I am that crazy. But, there's a lot of little things about it that suggest it could have been fraud. But the part that makes it strange to me is, at some level, how do you decide we're just going to cancel these tickets without contacting the people?
Yeah.
And maybe there's so many that you can't afford to contact them all. But part of me says that's kind of the cost of doing business in fraud detection, and you have to.
Well, what's weird to me is that it's done mid-trip. I mean, if your fraud detection is good, I would hope you would catch it on the front end, unless this guy bought it last minute, like extremely last minute, and then flew the first segment. It seems odd to me to say, you know what, we think there's fraud here, we're going to strand the person. I would much rather them call the person or call someone and go, is this person really over there in Malawi and traveling? And if the answer is yes, they're over there, then, we're not going to cancel it just yet. It seems odd to me to do that.
Yeah.
And borderline dangerous. I mean, if I was going somewhere for work, and let's say I was a war photographer and I had a ticket to Syria, unlikely, but I had a ticket to Syria, and then you said, oh, well, that's clearly fraudulent, he's going to Syria, and then you cancel it, and you strand me there. How am I I might not even have a cell phone. I might be stuck somewhere doing my work, and then I get to the airport, oh, we're sorry, sir, you're going to have to be here. It's another $3,000, and we don't take credit cards.
Yeah. And good luck. Yeah, no, it's a really strange situation, and it concerns me in a couple ways. Between this and we've talked a little bit, I guess we haven't talked on the show about it, but you and I have talked a little bit about United and the sort of the hack that's going on with the Mileage Plus program and data being compromised and all sorts of people having, extra tickets redeemed out of their accounts or points redeemed out of their accounts for things, and how that's been a problem, and getting locked out of the accounts. No one at United, I shouldn't say no one, but the company doesn't seem to have a coherent plan of how to address things like this.
Yeah.
When corporate security gets involved, accounts get locked down, and there's no one who is readily available and knows what's going on. And it's just bad for the customer. I
completely agree. And just to share some of the data breach stuff that you just mentioned, I had my account closed. I can't remember what day it was. It was like the day after Christmas. Yeah, Christmas Day after Christmas. Yeah. And I was trying to book some tickets for January, and I tried to get in my account, and it was like, oh, your password isn't recognized. And I was like, oh, okay, my password doesn't work, I typed it in wrong. And tried it again, and then it's like, please contact Mileage Plus services. So I called, thinking, okay, I already looked at my email, nothing in there. I called, and they said, there's a notation here that your account's closed. I said, oh, okay. And she said, well, I'm going to put a note into corporate security to contact you, but it won't be till Tuesday, which was like 5 days away. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I can't book anything. I said, I also have an outstanding ticket that I'm currently on. Am I good? Like, if I needed to go home, is that ticket valid? Well, I don't know really what to tell you, sir. I'm like, this is wonderful. I'm stuck. Come to find out, I got that email about a day later that said, accounts have been compromised and your accounts have been closed due to this. And that made more sense. And then it had notes to call back. And when I called back the second time, the lady goes, I have to transfer you to somebody else to handle this. And they did the whole security question thing and reopened the account, which I thought was odd. Like, clearly you knew something was going on, because even the emails dated previously that you knew that there was a data breach, like 4 or 5 days before, right? So you knew something was going on. Why didn't you have a policy in place, or a little bit more transparency for your frontline call center people to know, or to let other people know what was going on, or at least give some insight into your account's closed because of this, and we're working on it. Please be patient. And there will be an email going out with how to handle this soon. It just seems it's too fluid. I would hope that you, as a company, have a policy in place when this kind of stuff happens.
I think what it comes down to is, like, when you have like a Target credit card breach or the Home Depot credit card breach, things, and admittedly credit cards are more real than points, but only by a little bit.
Yep.
When those sort of things have happened, the companies involved have been aggressive in sort of getting their story out, explaining what's going on, talking to consumers, sort of sharing, this is what happened, this is how we're fixing it. Here's how you can contact us. And they have people who you can contact that actually know what's going on.
Yep.
And United has seemed to miss this.
And that's the thing, is it tells you that, it's a third party that was breached. Well, tell us who then. I want to know who. Why haven't they told me? If it's a third party, why haven't they said something? That to me is wrong. I think you need to be as open as possible where the data leak occurred, so that people can take the necessary steps. I don't know if out there some other username and password has been compromised because of this, because I don't know the third party. All I know is the United username and password was compromised. That is not, to me, coherent enough for me to make decisions on changing my passwords and things like that. And what's odd to me about the whole thing too is that I had the username in there, but I didn't have a password. So I had my email as my username, Mm-hmm. You could set up a username, but I didn't have a password set. I only had my PIN. So was the data breach simply someone's database getting hacked and the usernames were pulled from there and they happened to match? Or was it a full hack of all the data and passwords were released as well? We don't know. I wish United would be much more upfront about this than they're being. And it's been radio silence ever since.
Yeah, and I guess what I feel like is if you're going to have something happen, you've got to control the message in one way or another. And they're not doing it.
And it's worrisome. I mean, are my miles safe? I mean, there's a number of reports on Flyer Talk of people having fake tickets on Air China being booked randomly. Yep. And no one knows where that's coming from. No one's been told why that's happening. And to me, that's a big problem. I mean, you got people who, they fly a lot. The miles are our currency, and you're not giving us the full story. So anyway, I've probably killed that one, haven't I?
Only a little bit. And remember, the miles belong to the airline, not.
Oh yes. Oh, should we talk about the guy that's being sued right now by Orbitz and United as well?
Skiplag?
Yeah.
I can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you had an excellent post, so I'll let you take it away.
Really?
A little bit. Yeah.
I haven't written much about it.
I thought maybe it was a post in a forum somewhere. But
yeah, I'm sure I did. I haven't written a blog post about it yet. I'm supposed to by Monday morning. Oops. So that story is basically a guy has put together a website that searches for hidden city ticketing. So you want to go Chicago to Los Angeles. It will search for Chicago to Los Angeles fares, and it will also search for connecting routes that go Chicago to Los Angeles and then onward to other places. And often, when you add the extra connection, the flights become much cheaper.
Yep.
Function of, not always, but function of connection markets versus nonstops and all sorts of other fun bits that airlines deal with in their pricing models. He found a way to code connections to Orbitz, United, and various other OTAs and other websites where he could show the flights, show which airlines you'd be flying on, and provide sort of click-through booking. So you didn't have to do much work to figure out how to do it. You could literally say, okay, this is this one that's $200 cheaper is the one I want. And when you clicked, it would take you sort of to the final purchase page.
Wow.
And so United and Orbitz both sort of got involved with cease and desist letters. They had conversations with him, according to the claim that's out there now in federal court. And, he agreed to make changes and never did. He basically, he played them a little bit. It's the poor man's version of it. I'm sure that's not a legal term. But, and eventually they got pissed off enough. They're like, okay, well, forget it. Now you're done. And the claim that they filed is an interesting one, right? What they're saying is not that hidden city ticketing is illegal, because arguably it probably isn't.
Yep.
But it's a violation of the contract of carriage that you've created with the airline. And so he's they're claiming tortious interference, which is basically the civil version of you're encouraging someone else to enter into a false contract or to break a contract. And that is in fact illegal. There's laws around it. Whether he actually is doing that or not remains to be seen, and the courts may have to decide, or it may be heard elsewhere. But it's a sort of interesting esoteric legal claim, and one of the questions becomes: can the rule prohibiting hidden city ticketing in the contract of carriage be upheld? Because if not, then is it still interference with trying to tell people to avoid an unenforceable contract claim or clause?
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things about it like that, but for me, at the end of the day, I think the hardest part is I've done hidden city ticketing before. I'm sure I've done it in the last year or two. I don't remember exactly when, but I could find it pretty quickly, I think. I don't do it often, but sometimes I do. Does that make it okay? Probably not. I only speed when I'm driving some of the time. So, and I haven't been caught yet for that. I've been caught for some other things. But, also that we're violating the contract of carriage, and I, cleaned up my act when I got caught, but so it goes. I guess technically that was hidden city ticketing. Fuel dumping is a form of hidden city ticketing.
Yeah.
And so, it's a tough call to me, right? It is definitely violating the contract of carriage. And from the airline perspective, and from Orbit's perspective, their big claim is basically he presents himself as doing business with them.
Yep.
The one click through, the single click sort of to the purchase page and whatnot, probably violates some of their rules about deep linking in terms of service for using the websites and things like that. And he's chosen to ignore their cease and desists on that.
That raises a question for me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But
yeah.
Do you have any idea how he was getting his data? Do you know how he was grabbing it?
No, offhand.
Is it not made clear in the suit?
It hasn't been made clear in the suit where he's pulling the data from.
Interesting.
Okay. Or at least not that I remember. I only read the brief once, so I don't remember seeing that in detail. There was something about a database of. I think he probably has a database of city pairs.
Gotcha.
That he's uses and knows sort of what the cities beyond the hubs are, and can run some queries to put that together.
Yep.
How I would do it. He at one point did have an agreement to work through the Orbitz API. He was he had an affiliate agreement with Orbitz. And part of the affiliate agreement is you will not sell or encourage hidden city ticketing. And that's what he was doing. So Orbitz eventually killed the affiliate agreement. But there's a lot of things like that, which people saying, oh, there's no contract here and there. He had a contract with Orbitz, and he broke it, it would seem.
Yeah.
It gets to be an interesting situation. Now, was the lawsuit the best approach to solve this problem? I don't know. Now, a lot more people know about hidden city ticketing now than did before. That's for sure. A lot more people are going to at least talk about it and think about it and consider using it. And you've just heard me endorse that I've done it before and haven't gotten really caught too badly. So, but again, I think the big concern I have about the way he was doing it is he didn't mention or doesn't appear to have sort of really outlined all the risks and the challenges and the things that can go wrong.
Yep.
All right. You've bought a ticket from Chicago to, Spokane, or that's a bad example because there's no flights there. Chicago to Salt Lake City via LA because that got you the cheaper flight.
Yep.
When things go bad and they reroute you on, the nonstop or via Dallas to, or via Houston to Salt Lake City, you don't really have any recourse. You can't insist I have to fly through LA.
Yeah.
And for some, for an experienced traveler who knows going in what they're getting into, that might not be such a big deal. Maybe your onward connection is to, somewhere close enough by Palm Springs that, like, if they force you to get to Palm Springs, you can rent a car and drive over.
Yeah.
And it's worth saving a few $100s on the off chance that happens. But, I know one example where I did it. It was Seattle to Newark to BWI. If they had to reroute me to BWI, I would have taken the train home.
Yep.
I would have been annoyed, but I would have done it. Had I done Seattle, Newark, San Juan, and they routed me via Houston to San Juan, I would have been pretty pissed. But it's what I would have signed up for. So it's a tough situation. Don't check bags until you're one of the last people to board because you don't have elite status and you have to gate check your bag. Well, now what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is clearly like, you're right. Hidden city ticketing is not for the faint of heart and certainly not for the uninitiated or the amateurs. But they're the people now who he's sort of trying to sell this to. And so in some ways, I think it was irresponsible. Also, I can't imagine the margins were big enough that the commissions that he's getting from Orbitz on selling a couple tickets here and there are crap. There's not a lot of money in it. So I don't know what the goal really was. I mean, I guess if you get enough people doing it in volume, maybe you start making some money. But
would you say
I don't see it.
Would you say that one positive out of this will be some attention drawn to some of the spikes in airfare in certain markets? I mean, is that possible? Because you look at some of these hub routes, Chicago, LA is a good one. That is not a cheap ticket. San Francisco to middle of the country somewhere, not a cheap ticket. Yep. And it's all due to there's lack of competition on the routes anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it'll help in that way or something? I mean, I know we're still like some of the lowest airfares that have ever existed, but there are spikes in the marketplace in certain areas. You think that's a positive that's coming out of this?
Probably not.
Yeah. No one will notice. Yeah.
It's this weird thing, and here's the problem. I love a cheap airfare as much as the next guy, probably more than most of the next guys. But the reality is that this sort of approach where some routes cost more than others and it's not per segment, it's not per mile, likely means that more tickets are cheaper than not.
Yep.
And the businessman gets screwed. Businesses get screwed. I accept that more because I'm not a businessman, or I am, but I don't fly for business that much. So, there's that, but it's hard for me to envision a situation where regulated airfares is good for anybody.
Yep.
It's hard for me to envision a situation where distance-based airfare is good for anybody.
So that raises...
I just don't see it working very well any other way, even for the consumer.
So that leads to another question then. As we go into this new year, right, and gas prices continue to fall, as we talked about in the last show, and airlines are on track to make some really huge profits this next quarter. Are people going to start taking notice? I mean, you got to start asking now you're talking about billions in revenue and profit for the airlines. I have a feeling, just my gut tells me, someone in Congress is going to go, wait a second.
He's already identified himself, but yes.
Oh, who is it?
Schumer.
Oh, okay. That doesn't surprise
me. He hates
me.
the airlines.
That doesn't surprise me. But no, what I'm saying is like, do you think that's going to become more of a topic?
Probably. He's my senator, by the way.
Oh, he is. Oh, you voted for him, yeah. Or did you vote for him?
I'm not sure if I voted for him or not, but he's my senator. Now, my problem with that is that's a tough one to me for a couple reasons. One, the airlines have to make money every now and then, or they're never going to buy new planes and have better products.
Yep.
Not that better planes are necessarily tied to new products, as we've seen with new planes coming with smaller and tighter seats, but they also usually come with better IFE systems, so there's a little bit of a win at least. But telling the airlines they can't make profits doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, if someone also tells Apple they can't make 300% margins on, or whatever the margins are on their iPhones, then maybe we can start, why are airlines different than Apple? Why are airlines different than Coca-Cola and Pepsi and whoever else? Like, there are, and in some ways there's good reasons they're different, right? You can always have a small upstart little soda company that can compete on a regional basis, and you can't do that with an airline.
Yeah.
A little harder for a phone manufacturer with all the regulatory requirements and stuff, but that analogy may be a little more apt. But the regulations that exist in the airline industry are basically don't screw over the customers in a way that they aren't aware they're being screwed.
Yep.
Which sounds like a horrible thing, but that's kind of what it is. And if you know what you're paying for the airfare and you still decide to pay it, does it matter what the guy next to you paid?
Yep.
That's the hard part for me, is right. I mean, with the hub and spoke model and all passenger flows and things like that, I mean, the way that the tickets are priced and how that all comes together is somewhere between black magic and voodoo, and a little bit of a science and a little bit of art.
Yep.
So, revenue management is a crazy, crazy system, but it mostly works most of the time. Every now and then things get screwed up and you have $0 base fares for tickets on Etihad to all over the world. it's just there's a lot of little things like that which happen, and it's hard for me to say that airlines have to be held to a different standard because they're airlines.
Yeah.
I benefit from cheaper fares, so if I thought these change, if I thought holding the airlines to a different standard would result in me getting cheaper tickets, maybe I'd feel differently. I just don't. I don't see how it would work that way. I don't see how changing what the airlines are doing, to a per segment or per distance, or you can't have connecting flights that cost more than the underlying base segments between the individual city points. I don't see how that would work in my favor.
Yep.
I don't see how that works in any consumer's favor.
No, it's a good argument against it, heavy regulation against the airlines.
Yeah. And I shouldn't say any consumer. I don't see how it works in the general consumer's favor. If there is a single person that only flies back and forth between two cities, that's a nonstop, that's hub, single carrier route dominated, whatever, monopoly, that person might benefit.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot fewer of those than people who have varying travel patterns and who have, different approach, different sort of places they go.
Yep.
So
I think that wraps up the show. I think it was a good way to end it. I think it's a good analysis of what.
Thanks. I'm gonna have to listen to this transcript and write it down so I can have my blog post ready for Monday.
So let's tell everybody where they can find you, Seth.
I am Seth, also the Wandering Airman. I'm at WANDRME or wander.me, spelled the same way, on Twitter and Instagram and the World Wide Webs.
I love it. I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me on Twitter at @sseagraves. I blog at badice.com every now and then. You can follow Dots, Lines, and Destinations on Twitter at DotsLines. We're also online at moredotmorelines.com. Leave a comment there. I think there's a contact form there if you want to send us a question or some feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
And if not, I'll add one.
Oh, great. Yes, so there you go.
I'm actually not sure there is one. But, we should give a shout out to Foz, who's not here, but at FozM.
At FozM on Twitter and upgrd.com/Foz.
Yep.
And then Rolando Veloso is at Mundo Surfer on Twitter, and he tumbles sometime on tumblr.com/Mundo Surfer.
MundoSurfer.tumblr.com.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is tumble a verb now?
I don't know.
At context, I mean, it's, if we're doing somersaults, I guess it is. But.
I think we have some cool stuff planned for this year. You and I have talked about some stuff coming up for 2015 that we want to do. Some guests we want to have on. I think it'll be a good year, and we're going to work on some audio quality stuff. We're going to work on some production stuff. So I think 2015 will be good.
Can we tease Antarctica just a little bit?
Sure.
Likely stories from Antarctica coming, hopefully. Likely.
Yes.
Hopefully. We're working on nailing down the details on that, but hopefully some tales from Antarctica.
That'll be a fun show.
Neither you nor me, but hopefully some tales from Antarctica soon.
Yeah. Well, good talking to you, Seth.
Likewise.
Have a good beginning to your 2015, and happy New Year.
Off to get my Swedish meatballs now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.